This episode of Lazer Radio is brought to you by the Lazer Z1 helmet. No other helmet offers the same level of technology or adaptability that can be found with the Lazer Z1. From the optional LifeBeam integrated heart rate monitor, aeroshell cover for weather resistance or increased aerodynamic performance, integrated rear LED light for increased visibility in low light conditions, and MIPS for increased rider protection, the Lazer Z1 really does have it all. Try on the Lazer Z1 at your local Lazer dealer. On today's episode of Lazer Radio, we're being joined by the current Criterium National Champion, Erica Allar from Rally Cycling. Erica is joining us from
Rochester, New York.
Rochester, New York. Getting ready for the crit tonight, huh?
Yes, absolutely. It's a fun one.
You had some rough travel getting out there, huh?
Yeah, supposed to fly from Greenville last night or yesterday afternoon at 3:15, and so I left my home at noon, and they ended up canceling my flight around 6 or 6:30 and decided they would put me on a Charlotte to Rochester flight for a 10:15 departure. And so I got to do a one-way rental and drive from Greenville to Charlotte around 7 o'clock last night. And I made it, though.
The joys of travel, right?
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't. It was fine. It was one of the few times that I was not stressed out about getting here for whatever reason. I'm not really sure if it's just because it ended up working out, or if I just really understood that stressing out didn't make the flight not be canceled or didn't get me here any sooner. So it went pretty smooth.
That's one of the skills of being a bike racer. Like every racer we've talked to is, always talks about the travel delays and stuff. And like, you have to be good at it. You have to really learn how to deal with that stuff and how to deal with the flights.
Yeah, the funny part is there were two other guys that were supposed to be on my flight originally that were coming to Rochester, and they heard me on the phone with the woman at American Airlines as she was changing me over to the 10:15 out of Charlotte, and they tried to get on that flight, and I guess I took the last seat. And so I saw them, and they're like, "Oh, did you make it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm driving to Charlotte." And they're like, "Oh, we're thinking about driving up there." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." They're like, "Oh, it's no more seats on that flight." And I was like, "Well, if you get there's a crit tomorrow. You can come down and watch downtown." So I guess it was like my consolation for keeping them off the plane.
Well, yeah, we're glad you made it. Glad you get to race. So you've been racing a little bit. You raced out in Colorado. You're kind of getting down to the end of your road season now, right?
Yes, yeah. This is actually the last race that I'll do for the summer road campaign with Rally this year.
Right on. You were telling me a story earlier about flying to Colorado was kind of weird because you had an extra passenger with you.
Yeah, so in this past year, I've actually rescued 5 cats. There are 5 kittens, and in this last pairing,
were they all separate? You found these cats separately?
Yeah, well, the last 2 were brother and sister, but all the other ones were separately. And it actually started a few years ago in Colorado. I'm riding from Frisco, Colorado on the bike path to Vail, and I found a kitten, and I actually rode with it like 10 miles in my jersey because I couldn't leave it like on the bike path. And ever since then, I've just like randomly saved these cats. But yeah, this last batch, they're these 2 kittens, and we kept them, and we had 4 cats for a while, but it was too many. And Jamie and Jonas, their mom just bought a house, and one of their things was she had to get a cat. And Jamie went to the store and basically bought a bunch of cat stuff and said we were going to bring her this little girl kitten. And that's what I did. I flew from Atlanta to Denver with a little 17-week-old kitten.
How was it? Was it all right? I mean, did it just sleep?
For the most part, she was great, but she did escape at one point because the crate didn't quite fit underneath the seat in front of me, and so I had to this support system in the roof of her carrier was like kind of popping out the front end part, so I couldn't zip it all the way, and somehow she finagled getting out, and the flight attendant was coming by with the drink cart, and this kitten just goes and jumps out across the aisle onto the other side of the plane, and I was like, oh my gosh, she escaped. And the woman had to reach over into the laps of these other people and grab this kitten, which was really hilarious.
That sounds like the best plane ride ever. I'd be pumped if the kitten just showed up.
Oh, I know. And the thing that was kind of crazy about it is she hated being in the carrier, and she was just meowing and meowing, meowing. And I took her out and I was just holding her, and she was perfect. And I got yelled at because she's not registered as an emotional support or therapy cat.
Right.
So they're like, excuse me, you need to put her away.
Oh.
Well, I'm her emotional support. She
the
needs
other way
me.
around.
Yeah.
She needs me.
It's the other way around.
Some people just don't get it.
Yeah, no, and no, I asked the people sitting next to me, I was like, does this bother you? Like, can I have her out for a little bit? And they're like, yeah, it's totally fine. So, but she made it, and Rosalie, their mom named her Stella,
Hmm.
and she is fitting in nicely. They're perfect match for each other. So
Nice.
it's pretty cute. Yeah, it
Right
worked
on.
out well.
You've got a lot of
Yeah.
new projects going on aside from
Oh, it's
becoming
so
a
busy.
aside from becoming a cat rescuer.
Yeah.
You got a collegiate career going on. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's my my round two for collegiate
Yeah,
racing sort of
back to
joke.
school, right?
Back to school, yeah. So that's the cool thing about collegiate bike racing is that they allow master students to race collegiately,
Yeah.
and it's not, they don't operate under the NCAA. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, and yeah, it's been a fun year racing collegiately. Honestly, one of the things I've always enjoyed about collegiate bike racing is the low pressure kind of fun environment that it is. My first go around, it was with Penn State, and now it's with Piedmont College. And there's definitely a difference between both eras of collegiate bike racing, and it will be fun to be part of kind of getting collegiate bike racing back to what it used to be. But yeah, just won some national titles and representing Piedmont College, which is fun because they're a brand new program. This will be, this fall marks their first year, like full year of being around. And we actually have grown from, we had originally two girls, but one ended up moving on to other things in life. And then this year we went from having one girl to this fall we have six on
Wow.
the team.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're super excited. It's pretty much doubled in size
And are
this year.
you working with the management of the program? I mean, are you behind the scenes or are you just racing?
A little bit of both. I'm working as the graduate assistant to James, who's the head coach of the. So a lot of the recruiting and a lot of like the social media and the busy work that he's not necessarily as good at falls on my plate, which is actually really good because he actually goes for rides and trains with us and actually tries to get the riders to improve on their riding skills and their fitness and stuff like that. So it's really neat how hands-on he is with his coaching, and by me taking those other sort of duties off of his table, it allows him to really invest more time into the kids and help them achieve their goals, which is super fun to see. So they have a really great graduate assistant program there, where I get, your tuition gets covered and you also get a stipend for paying or for working as the GA. So definitely economical.
How different is collegiate racing this go round? Like, does it feel significantly different than when you were doing your undergrad at Penn State?
Yeah, it really does. Honestly, when I was racing at Penn State, we had Rebecca Larson, Anna Lang, Sarah Ewell, and I don't know
Uh,
if people know who these
yeah.
racers are, but they were really good. Mara Abbott, Megan Garnier, they were all racing collegiately. And on the men's side, you had people like Mike Friedman and like a bunch of other guys who ended up going to the Olympics and stuff like that. But it used to be something that people who were trying to be pro or who were already pro athletes were doing, because more on the women's side, you find a lot of girls or a lot of women are in school while they're racing professionally.
Sure.
That's how they balance being able to do it. And so they just did it. They raced collegiately and they got their school, either they got scholarships or they found that was just what they were going to do. And for some reason, we just don't have that depth anymore in collegiate bike racing. And I'm not really sure why necessarily or what's different, but it's definitely different.
It seems like a lot of people are a little too anxious to get to the pro ranks, especially young racers. You
Yeah.
think like, oh, I've got to get to the world tour by the time I'm 20 or 21 or 22 or whatever. But like all those riders you just talked about, collegiate racing is a legitimate development step in becoming a pro for a lot of people. And I think a lot of kids, I don't want to say kids these days, but this generation of kids doesn't realize that collegiate racing is a great step in your quest to go to the highest level.
Absolutely. And there are definitely a huge number of programs around the United States that do offer really great scholarships and stuff like that. So, even on the guys' side, which I feel like maybe the young men have a little bit more of the idea that they need to get to the pro ranks in their early
Yeah.
20s. Whereas the women, I feel like maybe they are in their mid to late 20s is where they feel like, so they could, go to school and whatever. But even for the young men that I'm talking to and trying to convince them to come to school, we always give them the option that they could always come just every fall semester so that their spring is open to train, commit to riding fully, and then, achieve their goals outside of school, because that's what Jamie did. I think, I don't know if it was 13 or 14 years, every fall semester during his pro racing career, he would take another semester of school, and it took him a while to graduate, but he did.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely possible to balance school. And like on rally, we have, I know Sepp Kuss, I never say his name right, I think it's Sepp Kuss.
No one does.
Yeah. Yeah, but he just graduated this past May from like CU Boulder or something like that, or Colorado, I don't know, somewhere in Colorado. And then we've got another guy, I'm going to forget his name off the top of my head right now since I'm trying to think of it, but he's like getting his master's degree from Canada. So, it's not impossible to be a good bike racer, especially on the guy side. And when you have someone like Jamie who's been around for a really long time and who actually could really help improve your handling and your bike racing and all that kind of stuff. In my head, it seems like such common sense.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. It does, because, you can still race with a trade team. A lot of these kids can get scholarships, go to school for, basically free. Yeah, well, why would you not want to take advantage of that? But, I also get you want to go to Europe and you want to do the thing. You want to be part of it. But
That's
the whole college experience too, like at least getting to do the undergrad thing and living in dorms and just going to college and being away from home for the first time, which I guess a lot of kids don't have that problem being bike racers though, because you travel quite a bit as
Yeah, that's funny you said that, because like Megan Heath, who's she's a last year junior right now, she'll we haven't gotten an announcement or anything, but we're gonna assume that she'll probably be on the Junior Worlds team, and this is her last year as a junior, and she's actually come to Piedmont, and she's just moved in and had her first week or two of classes. And I was talking about her, her parents only live not more than even an hour and a half away from Piedmont, which is nice for her. And we were just talking before I flew up here and asking if she was like homesick or if her parents missed her or anything. And she said, no, I think being a bike racer has really prepared me to be away from them, and she's like, not that I'll never get homesick, but she spent, just over a month in Europe with USA Cycling earlier this year. And so I think, it definitely prepares these young people to be away from home and not rely so much on their mom and dad necessarily. So good thing.
Or Sohner. Or
Sohner, yeah. Right.
Hey, what was your entry into the sport? Did it start collegiate, or were you racing as a junior before you went to school?
Yeah, before I went to school, I raced my last two, junior racing age 17, 18. So I was 16 racing age 17 and then 17 racing age 18. Those were the only two junior years that I actually raced. And then once I graduated, I just decided, because where I lived in Pennsylvania, there was a really great, cycling coach that ran Penn State's program, Jim Young. He's just such a sweet guy, and everyone raced for Penn State, and I wanted to race for Penn State too. So that was really all I needed to do to decide to go there. And so, yeah, that's what I did.
And your dad was a cyclist. Rode his bike. It was kind of an important part of his life. Yeah, no, my dad, he's kind of really got me into it, because he struggled with his weight for a really long time, and he had started riding just to start getting in better shape and taking care of himself. And he had heard about this thing called the velodrome in Pennsylvania, and I actually knew a girl in 7th grade when we moved there who raced there, but he just decided we would start going, and that's really kind of the whole thing just started. So was that the T-Town track?
Yes, the T-Town track.
Man, how lucky to be that this, what would end up to be a world-class cyclist, lives, within driving distance of a velodrome.
It's so crazy, because I honestly, before we moved there to that part of Pennsylvania, I had no idea what the Tour de France was. All I knew was my Huffy pink and purple bike that I rode to my friend's house in the neighborhoods. It was not anything that I would ever think of racing. I'm just going to go down to Lindsay's house on my Huffy. That's what we did. So, which is
how, how everyone starts riding their bike, right?
That's
I think
true.
Everyone's first bike ride is to a friend's house or riding around the neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way, you get that itch to race. Was it seeing a race, or did you decide you wanted to race and got right into it? Were you hanging out at the track before you raced?
That's a good question. Oh, yeah. Initially, we would just go and watch, because, like I said, there was this girl that I had met in 7th grade who raced, and I have no idea how she got into the program or into bike racing, but she had just won junior nationals on the track. And so because she was my friend and my dad talked about it, we just started going to watch Friday night racing. And they offered these developmental programs to learn how to race the track and how to ride the track. And I just signed up for it and really it was all downhill from there, or uphill, I guess. Yeah, and that's just how I got into it and just kept going, and yeah, here I am.
And you won some track national championships.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually was just thinking, one of my Facebook memories popped up from 3 years ago when I won the elimination national championship on the track, which is funny because it was the only year that they had it, and so like I'm like the only person that's ever won the elite national like title for the elimination race.
I think that makes you the defending elite elimination national champion.
Yeah. So that's honestly like I'm trying to think. I never any elite stuff on the track. I've been second and third a lot, but a lot of those elite jerseys have kind of just passed me by. I ended up on shoulders like Valente.
Do you miss the track? I mean, do you ever have thoughts of like, it'd be fun to get back out there?
Yes and no. Like, it's always super fun to race the track, but it's really hard to do it for fun. Like, I always love going back and racing. Like, that's why I love collegiate bike racing, because it just, track is where my heart is, and that's how I got started. But it's just, it's a whole different mix of stuff, and it's really difficult to make a really like good living off doing it, and it just requires a lot of creativity, I guess we'll say,
pretty much an
to
Olympic,
make it.
It's pretty much make the Olympic team or not. If you're going to be if
exactly.
you're going to be a track racer, it's like you make the Olympic squad or you do something else.
Or you try to race or you race crits, or you go, or you get a job. I don't know. You do something else, because it's hard, and it's definitely not an easy thing to do. And that's why the girls who do well, the Chloe Eigerts and the Sarah Hammers and the Jen Valentes, and even my teammate Kelly Catlin, they're all they got medals, and it's really impressive. So kudos to them.
We talked a little bit about this before when I saw you at Criterium Nationals, but we were talking about, you mentioned Kelly Catlin. That made me think about all the young riders that you seem to have really like started mentoring. Like you kind of have this mom vibe on the team for Rally. I mean, is that
yes.
an appropriate observation?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the things, like, I know I'm at like the tail end of my career. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be racing or what my career looks like. I know that I can still win races and all that stuff, but I care about the young girls who are coming up through bike riding. It's funny because Catherine Main, she's from Canada. She was on the team last year. She called me mom one time, like as a joke, and I was like, once. You got it once. And that is it. Like, never happening again. Yeah. That's the last time. So I just, I've learned a lot. I've had really great access to a lot of great coaching, from Jamie, among other people, really great resources. I just feel like I've been pretty lucky throughout my whole career to just, it's been pretty easy, honestly, for me. Like, it's almost, you think back about all the opportunities I've had and just kind of how easy, not easy, that's just not giving it enough credit, but it's definitely, I've seen people who have had to go through a lot more hoops to make a career happen than I have. And I'm really grateful for that. So if I can, teach these young girls how to race tactically a little bit smarter, or how to be more efficient in the corners, or how to not get boxed in a sprint, then, I feel like maybe I'm helping the next generation. And when they win their first race in a field sprint or whatever, I can be like,
Who took you under their wing when you first came in the sport? Was there a rider that that stuck out as someone who sort of helped you make that transition?
So clear, but it was Jamie. I mean, he saw the potential, and like I talk a lot about how growing up I was always pretty physically talented. Like I'm a pretty athletic person. Just if I didn't, just off the couch, I feel like I have pretty natural physical ability, but he was the person, like, I was kind of doing the bike racing thing and kind of in college and kind of hanging around and not really like achieving anything spectacular in any direction. I wasn't getting really great grades at school, and I wasn't achieving anything on the bike. And he was just like, you could be really good. You just have to try harder. So he saw it, and, I think really it just took a little bit of somebody saying like, hey, like, I believe in you and you can do this. And it wasn't necessarily easy for him. That's for sure. I'm not the most difficult or most easy person to, especially through all like my growing pains. But yeah, he's taken a lot of time and his own energy to make it work. So
we should go back and explain Jamie's story, and then I want to talk about how you guys kind of cross paths. Jamie was a 2-time Olympian, right?
Yep.
On the track. He's now coaching at Piedmont with you.
Yep.
Just talk about like where you guys met and how that crossed paths, because it sounds like he was a pretty important part of you becoming a pro.
Yeah, we just actually met in Trexlertown. You know, when I had first started going down there, we had known each other for several years before we even like became even friends or anything like that. And he used to race down there at the track, and so he was somebody that we would come down on Friday nights and my family would line up against the wall and he would race Madisons with Jonas, actually. Like I remember distinctly watching their final Madison together down there in Trexlertown. And he just opened up or got acquainted with a woman in the T-Town area and started a coaching group. And that's how we kind of got acquainted. And then a while later, just we're like, hey, you're pretty cool. So
let's hang out more.
Let's hang out more, yeah. And let's ride bikes.
Is he still part of your professional development? I mean, your development as a cyclist, obviously. Does it ever get weird, the personal versus sporting side?
I think a long time ago it was a little bit more weird than it is now. There was definitely an adjustment period, but I think we just are so used to it now that it's like I'm not phased. Like initially, for sure, I was like, he would be like, "You're doing this wrong," and my feelings would get hurt.
I would think it would be super hard to like yell at my girlfriend or tell her that she's doing something wrong. But
no, because like he's so good at separating that stuff, right? But like it really took me a lot to be like, you're mean. Like, you know, I take that personally, but it had nothing to do with me or my relationship with him. It was like, hey, like, you can win this bike race, but you didn't because you're doing this wrong. You know, it's like, I'm trying to help you achieve your goals. So instead of being sensitive and being offended by me telling you facts, maybe you should just listen to me and fix it, and then you'll win.
Well, I think that's sort of the development of becoming a good bike racer, is being able to listen to anyone, being able to take criticism, because that's a big part of it.
Huge. It's huge. And it's something like little Megan, you know, Jamie and I are coaching Megan together, and her previous coach actually is very straightforward with a lot of the juniors that he works with and coaches, and he's very blunt with them. And I actually appreciate that a lot because, you know, sugarcoating stuff doesn't necessarily always accomplish the goal. And, you know, worrying about people's feelings, whether they want to hear it or not, isn't going to help them improve. And so I think it's really important for athletes, not for coaches to be jerks and be like, you suck, but to figure out a way to be like constructive and to say, you didn't do that right. Like that effort was bad. You didn't even try, you know, without the person who's receiving the criticism getting offended. Like, you have to be hard on yourself and be willing to hear the negative to get better. So it's huge.
Every crit that we do, you always hang around the junior races. You're always there when the juniors are out riding, or the kids races or whatever, rolling down the start-finish stretch. Is there a director inside of you that maybe wants to come out one day?
I think so. I think, you know, I love the kids races. I think that it's important for kids to get exposed to our sport. And I think one of the reasons why we're missing, especially on the women's side, I think we're missing a huge age group there, like the late junior espoir thing, is because they don't have access to a lot of women, and they don't know that people are still doing it on the women's side. And I one day, maybe when I'm done with my master's degree, to get involved with like a U23 or run a junior women's team, I think that would be really awesome. I think that you know, we have U23 men's teams, and there's, you know, teams that are focused around junior men and stuff like that. And that's just, there's a gap of that team availability, but there's also a gap of riders to choose from, right? To like outfit a U23 women's team or outfit a junior women's team would be really hard because there's not that many of those types of riders. So it would be fun, and it's something I would definitely be super interested in and really passionate about. It's just figuring out what we can do to get people to stay interested in the sport long enough to field a team of U23 women. So
that's interesting. The gap in participants, where it sort of dips down, I think, in that, you know, that age group, especially when young girls are, you know, they have so many options to do, whether it's sports or stuff at school or whatever. And figuring out how to get them into the sport, and collegiate racing is probably a good path for that. speaking of the collegiate thing, we didn't talk about your degree. What are you majoring in? Like, what are you doing?
I'm getting my Master of Arts in Teaching with a focus on early childhood education. So we'll be able to teach anything K through 5 once I'm done.
So you're a natural born teacher. I can tell.
Yeah. It's definitely it took me a little while to kind of decide school. You know, my degree from Penn State. Initially, it was a psychology degree or applied psych degree, but it ended up being liberal arts. And so,
what did you think when you were like 18, going to college, like picking your school and getting the acceptance letter? What did you think you were going to grow up to be? Like, what was your
a nurse? Honestly,
a nurse.
Like,
Okay.
I had this whole plan. Like, I was like, okay, actually, when I was like 16 or 15, as young as you could, I went to school and got certified to be a first responder on an ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole plan was to be a first responder and then go through.
At 16 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I was gonna do that, and then I was gonna become an EMT,
Yeah.
and then I was gonna go to school for nursing and be a nurse, and like that was my whole plan. And then like this bike racing thing happened, and that just got completely shot out the door. Like, didn't even think of it after that. So yeah, and I had considered, you know, going back to school for nursing a little bit, but I would have had to start all over, and I think it would have been really much more difficult to. I want to be in the lives of these young kids because I want to help them, especially for the young girls. It's really important to me that they are provided an opportunity to like believe in themselves and, you know, build up their self-confidence and know that if they work hard and apply really good work ethic and just are really tough about some things and just really put a good effort in, they can achieve really cool stuff, whether it's academically or sports wise or anything. You know, it's just, I think it's super important that there's positive influences. And so I hope to be one of them when I become a teacher. So, and that would be less so with a teacher or with a nurse. I think it would just be sad. I would just be like, oh, I love kids and, you know, or whoever my patients were. And it would just be like, well, I can make your life happier in this moment, but you're very sick and there's not much that I can do about this.
Yeah, teaching sounds a little more fun, maybe a little more positive every day, I guess.
So,
but still contributing.
The longevity of it, but yeah.
When did you first have that inkling of like, oh, maybe I'll become a teacher? I'm sure you didn't just decide and go get a graduate degree.
No, gosh, so it was just in the last few years. You know, we've done a lot of school bike safety talks through Jamie's nonprofit Care for Cycling. We're in a bit of a low moment now, but like when we were still in Arizona, I had spoken to over 5,000 kids locally in Tucson by itself about school bike safety or bike safety and like wearing helmets and riding safely on the road. And just getting in that school atmosphere and being with those kids and just gaining a lot of confidence and feeling like knowing how I had a really like cool positive influence on those kids and that I was someone that they kind of looked up to, you know, as a sports athlete and as someone that comes in as like, oh, you're a professional cyclist. And so I feel like maybe held a little bit more clout with them. And so I feel like, man, I could just really impact these kids really positively. And I could really teach them a lot of the stuff that I've learned about being a bike racer and bring it to the classroom and figure out, how to teach them cool life lessons while teaching the Common Core standards, I guess.
I love the school visits. When you guys go to races, a lot of times races will have the teams, you know, go to the local elementary schools and get the kids excited about the race and come out and like, there's always the 2 or 3 kids that walk away from that like just enamored with, you know, whether it's one of the athletes or just the sport, the bikes, whatever. It's massively important to get into the schools.
Yeah. It's huge. It's huge. Some of my most memorable race moments were for some of the school bike visits that we did. I remember specifically we went to a school in Walterboro, South Carolina, which was during Speed Week a few years ago. And one of the parents actually came up and was talking to me and was like, my kid came home and was like, we need to go to this bike race tonight. Yeah. They came into school today. Sweet. And like, it might've been the only person that actually came from the school. But the fact that the kid actually went home and was like, you talked to my kid, here we are. That's so cool. This is awesome. So yeah, that's pretty neat.
And that's what you hope that, you know, that one kid is there next year and then the year after that. And then becomes
and then
a bike
asking
racer
for their new bike every year.
And then goes and races at Piedmont and goes on to become a pro, right?
Right. Yes. Everybody should come race at Piedmont. And if you have questions about it, just let me know.
That is a big part of what you're doing, though, trying to grow the collegiate program there and trying to recruit cyclists. Why Piedmont? Like, give me your pitch. If I'm looking at a few collegiate schools, I've been a pretty good junior racer. Time to go to school. I'm thinking about keeping racing. Why Piedmont?
Well, first of all, we have a world-class coach. You know, Jane was on the Rio Olympic track program as their tactical coach for the women's team pursuit, and the Sarah Hammer for her Omnium and stuff like that. But outside of just having a great coach, Piedmont actually has invested a lot of money in stocking up a bike room. So we actually have a handful of cyclocross bikes, mountain bikes, road bikes, and track bikes that athletes that are coming in, if you don't, let's say you have a road bike, but you don't have a mountain bike, like you can use the school's mountain bike to get going. So you don't have to go out and have your parents or try to struggle to find some money to scrape together to outfit your own, mountain bike. So that's super great. The other thing that I think is really awesome is that we are in the northeast part of Georgia, like 50 minutes above where Athens is, and we have really, really mild winters, but really, really amazing training. And I wish that more people would just take a second to come down and see where we're at, because our road riding is phenomenal. We have amazing gravel roads to ride in Lake Russell. I think Lake Russell is something like, it's probably 400 acres, but I'm going to say 40 acres of national forest just because I don't actually remember the specific number. And then we have really great mountain biking. We're an hour and 25 minutes or so from the Atlanta Velodrome, so we're not super far from track racing as well. Like we just have access to a lot of different stuff. And I know like there are other schools that we compete against, like Milligan and Marion, who offer really a lot of cycling scholarships and athletic scholarships, which Piedmont actually doesn't do because they're a Division III private school. But everybody who applies, they are eligible for a merit-based scholarship. So you get some sort of, tuition discount. And some of them are very great if you have good test scores and good GPAs and stuff like that. So
sweet. I'm sold. I'm coming back for my master's.
You can totally do it.
I'm gonna do the Erica Allar program. Just
you can. You can like whip our little sophomore riders into shape, get them.
Well, apparently you can do it both. I mean, you've made it to all the races. You're still racing as a professional on rally and going to school at the same time. Like it's possible.
It is super possible, and actually, rally's cycling team, they deserve a lot of credit because they actually, I want to get the number right, 9 out of the 12 girls on the team this year are in school.
Wow.
Either working toward an undergraduate degree or whatever. Like Emma's in school, Sarah Poitevins in school, Catherine Main's in school.
Yeah, see, that really says something about the organization at Rally. Like I think that speaks really highly to.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge, and they have, I know it's not easy for them to manage all of our school schedules when you're like, hey, I have to fly in day of because I have class Thursday night, or Emma had to she left on the final day of Joe Martin during the crit because she had to come back for school. And they've been, I know it can't be easy managing everybody's school schedules with the race schedule, but they do a really great job and deserve a huge amount of credit for that, because I think it's really important people know that Rally supports people who are in school and allows them to chase their dreams on the bike while managing with riders their academic achievements as well.
Right on. Well, hey, tell them thanks for us. We wouldn't have Erica Allar without him.
That's true. It's very true. Yes.
Hey, have you seen your new national champions kit? I'm trying to think if you've raced since nationals. You have.
I have, yeah. I actually got to debut the national champion kit at the Crit and Cascade Classic in Bend, Oregon.
That's right.
It was a huge day. They
cool.
like Express, designed it, and Sam, our designer, graphics designer, whatever, did an amazing job. I've gotten so many compliments about the kit, and it just is like super clean and really classic. It's not too crazy. It really, everyone's like, this embodies what a national champion kit should be, and it's so awesome. So, just now the next thing I need to do is get some of those specialized national champion shoes, and then I'll be good.
We'll work on that. It's always hit or miss with the national champions kits. I mean, it could go really well or really poorly.
Oh, there's been some bad ones.
The design process,
Oh yeah, no, but they really did a good job, and it's been cool too because Emma won U23 TT and road race this year, so she also gets to wear the same kit, which is nice. We've got a lot of national champions on our team.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's rad. I like it.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Look forward to seeing the Stars and Stripes flying out there tonight. I'm going to be watching the live stream. They'll have some live coverage from Rochester. So
yeah, we're looking forward to it, hoping to pull off the nice win in Rochester and close out our road summer campaign with some victories.
Yeah, so this will be your last road race of the season.
Yep. This is the last one for the season. Then I start racing, start prepping for the college mountain bike season, and then we have collegiate track nationals in mid-September in Indianapolis. So.
Right on. The fun never stops on two wheels, right?
It never stops. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Good luck tonight, and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
That's Erica Allar of the Rally Cycling Team on the Lazer Radio podcast. Thanks a lot, Erica.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of Lazer Radio. Be sure to check out more great shows on the Wide Angle Podium Network. Until next time, I'm Brad Sohner, saying thanks for listening.